So as the primary race heats up in Maine, Democratic Senate hopeful Governor Janet Mills hit her opponent, the progressive candidate Graham Platner, with an attack ad. Unfortunately for her, I don't think it went the way she thought it was gonna go. The people she was hoping to win over with the ad weren't impressed, and we have footage of that from a town hall that was leaked. But Cenk, this is just the establishment Dems being the establishment Dems all over again. We've seen this before. What are your thoughts? Your 2 cents.
Yeah, the good news about this story is in the old days, they would have gotten away with all this, but these days, everybody's getting caught up in here. So I love the way the corporate Democrat got caught in this story. Tell us all about it, Yes.
Yeah, all right. So Drop Site just released a leaked video of a town hall that Mills held with Maine voters. And the town hall was only about 30 minutes long, but the negative nature of the ad came up quite a few times within those 30 minutes, which I thought was interesting. So here's a look at the ad before we go on.
Did you know Graham Platner wrote that women worried about rape need to, quote,
not get so up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to.
It's disgusting. Platner wrote to avoid rape, women should, quote,
act like an adult for sake.
Graham Platner, seriously.
We blame the victim. That's a horrible thing to say.
Disqualifying. I have not seen this.
He's a bully.
This guy gives off a vibe.
Just no way I could vote for you.
No.
Graham Platner, the closer you look, the worse it gets.
Okay, so we will get to the response to the ad in a minute, but you may have noticed that the ad featured 4 women, each only identified by their first names and last initials. The women presented as just average Maine voters, just everyday people, are actually establishment Democrats who were recruited to be in the video. And that is very fitting because Mills is very much backed by the party establishment. So case in point, Janet Mills has been endorsed by Chuck Schumer, while Graham Platner has been endorsed by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. But back to the ad, here's what one woman had to say to Mills regarding the ad during the town hall.
Say that I'm a member of the Me Too generation, and I was offended by your ad, and I would very much like you to run a clean campaign. Like Joe Baldacci said, let's have a positive campaign. I don't think anybody should be attacking another Democrat right before the primary and using underhanded means and using that kind of language. Okay, I think you can talk about what you have done has been wonderful. So speak about what you have done and don't demolish your candidate in such an underhanded way. And I'm sorry, that's not a question. That's a statement.
All right, so Mills did respond by saying that the people have the right to know who it is that they're voting for, even though all the stuff that she put in the ad was stuff that was, drug up from forever ago. But also she said that this was about electability, which is a line that a lot of establishment Dems love to throw out, especially whenever they're losing to a more progressive candidate. She later says that Maine needs to vote for the Dem who is more likely to beat Susan Collins. And I guess she thinks that that should be her. It's the same thing that we heard time and time again on the campaign trail with the Democrats. It said you got to vote for whoever it is that's going to beat Donald Trump, and that was really the only talking point that a lot of that we heard from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But if you're wondering whether or not Mills is actually establishment, here's her response to a question regarding campaign donations.
This is a Zoom question from Rob Voucher. Is it on? Governor, how do you feel about national party big money being poured into a specific candidate before the state has a chance to have their own primary and make up their own minds? And do you support, along with that, do you support the Maine Democratic Party's neutrality rule?
I respect. Go ahead. I respect the neutrality rule. I don't know what big money you're talking to. I don't have the big money here. I don't have big money from the National Party. What, are you kidding me? We were both recruited or asked to run by national Democrats. But I don't think either of us has any big money from any source.
Well, unfortunately, Drop Site is reporting that what Mills said isn't exactly true because on the day Mills announced her Senate campaign, the DSCC formed a joint fundraising committee with her called Maine Senate Victory 2026. So there's that. And if Mills is sounding a little bit desperate to you, it's probably because she is or she's getting there. Polls from various polling groups from late last year up till now have all found Platner to be ahead of Mills, in one instance by as much as 38 points. And you can see we have a graphic there for you. The range is big, but the most is by 38 points. But either way, even if it's by just 2 points, Platner is leading in every poll. And it seems reasonable to assume that that would continue. The Maine primary is in June of this year, so there's a couple months to go. And so we're gonna see how this goes. But Cenk, here in Texas, we just had a somewhat contentious Democratic primary. And it did get to the point where both candidates were trying to be cordial to one another. And then eventually the attack ads did start to come up. And it really doesn't help anybody because I guess it's not really an apples to apples comparison, because here we had two progressive-ish candidates. Over there in Maine is the progressive, and then Janet Mills, whatever you want to describe her as. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So Graham Platner is not just leading in the primary, he's leading in the general election. He's doing better than Mills is against Susan Collins. Presumably, the Democrats would like to beat Susan Collins. And they've been trying with corporate Democrat after corporate Democrat. And every time they tell us, oh no, we're gonna get the Republicans in the suburbs to vote for us instead. And that's our genius strategy. And every time Susan Collins wins. For the first time, they've got a guy beating Susan Collins. So why don't they go with him? That's the part of the story that, of course, the rest of the media doesn't tell you, which is that Graham Platner is not supporting Israel, and Graham Platner is not supporting corporate donors. We, on the other hand, try to help you guys. So if you're starting your own business, at some point you're gonna need a shop. We have shoptyt.com. Yeah, but really, who do we use? Who do we trust? Well, that's Shopify. Shopify makes everything simpler. It makes checkout way simpler with the big purple button that they have. That really has helped us a lot. And overall, they've been wonderfully responsive to us. We wouldn't do it with anybody else. So if you're gonna set up a shop for anything that you're doing online, make sure you're using Shopify. And right now, if you sign up, you only get $1 per month trial. $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/TYT. That's shopify.com/TYT. So the Democratic Party is now wasting your money, if you contributed to them, to give it to Mills' losing race in the primary, because they're like, gosh, I hope against hope that we have the weaker candidate, because then either Mills or Susan Collins will support Israel and all the corporations that donate to both the Republican and Democratic parties. So even if Mills loses the general election, Schumer thinks my donors are happy anyway. So that's why he's trying to hurt the candidate who might actually win that race for his own party. But look, we've covered that type of story for 20 years here on the Young Turks. And we've been screaming it online, and with me in particular, definitely screaming it. And the mainstream media was an immovable object. You just ran into their brick wall. They're like, no, Mills is the best candidate, even though she is losing, she is a better candidate. Graham Platner is disqualified. That's there, by the way, if you wanna know if something is coming from an establishment Democrat, the key word is disqualifying. They love to say that because they, in their mind, and because this used to be true, they go, oh, I have disqualified you. Graham Platner is already disqualified. I found something of his from 1987. Did you know that his underwear was not clean and he had not washed behind his ears back in 1993? Yeah, he might have been 13 at the time, but still, the ear behind the ear is so dirty. I asked Susan M., who's an apparatchik for my campaign, and Susie G., who's an apparatchik for Schumer, and they all agree he's been disqualified, okay? I don't like his vibe. He doesn't take corporate money like the rest of us, so I don't like his vibe. He's gonna, if you vote for him, you might find out we're all crooks. Yeah, no wonder you don't like his vibe. And then finally they said, you know what, after seeing these comments from years and years and years ago that our Oppo research found against a Democratic candidate who might be Susan Collins and that we're using all over Maine television now to help the Republicans, it says here that you said many years ago something I am deeply uncomfortable with. Disqualified. right? Well, the good news is, guys, it isn't working anymore. He isn't disqualified, and he's leading, and he's gonna kick her ass. Okay, he's almost certainly gonna win that primary, and my guess is he'll win the general election. And what I can't wait for, Yaz, is for mainstream media to come up with excuses that, well, I mean, he won the general election, but he said, no, tattoo, he has the wrong tattoo, right behind the ears, tattoo, and wrong underwear in 87. No, you can't, disqualifying. Oh, he won the general election. You should take no note from that. No, remember, the only Democrats that are good Democrats are the ones that go and stuff their money full of corporate donations from Pfizer and Northrop Grumman and Johnson & Johnson and Benjamin Netanyahu. Remember, corruption is the winning path, mainstream media will tell you, and the Democratic, I'm gonna throw a lot of adjectives in there, but let's leave it at corporate Democrats in Washington will tell you. But the polling indicates that the American people have woken up. So at the end of the day, as I view this as a super positive story, their old tricks that I've been fighting for decades are now no longer working. The American people have woken up, and it's a beautiful day in America.
Yeah, long overdue, as I'm sure we would say, and all of our listeners would agree. And Platner did respond to the ad. Whenever it came out, he released a video on social media. It was like 5 minutes long. He didn't deny saying the things that were in the ad. He said, yeah, I said them, but it was a different time in my life, and I'm a different person now. So he did address it without denying any of it. But the Dems are generally disappointing. I know we here on the left have been disappointed in them for a very long time, but especially now when there's so much going on in the world. Trump is talking about sending troops to the Middle East, and the Dems, where are they? They're not even speaking out against this very much. I haven't heard anything from them. They're not, even if they've said anything, they're not doing anything. They are not reliable. People cannot count on them to keep the American people safe or to even stand up to somebody like Donald Trump. So what is the point of them even being there? And how do they have the audacity to still try to convince people that they are still the better option than somebody like Graham Platner? And I covered this story for Rebel HQ, and I did say, one thing with Donald Trump, the reason why he got elected in the first place, both in 2016 and in 2024, is because somehow he convinced the American people that he was gonna be the guy to fight for them, right? I don't know why they believed it, but that is what they believed, and that is why they voted for him. They said, he's an outsider, he's gonna fight for me, he's gonna fight the establishment. He isn't the establishment. The American people are inherently anti-establishment. And so when establishment Democrats come here telling you, vote for the establishment that is currently doing nothing, it's a very, very hard sell. And I'm very pleased to see that it is not working on the American people anymore, at least not to the degree that it used to. There used to be a very strong incumbent pull in the United States. If you're the incumbent, you get voted back into office. That is not necessarily the case anymore, and I'm here for it. We're very, very glad to see it. And one more point before we go. This is, again, we can draw a lot of parallels between this election and what happened in 2024 with Kamala Harris and even with Joe Biden. And the Democrats did their own audit on what happened during the 2024 election, why Kamala Harris lost. And then they were like, you know what, we're not gonna release it. And the reason why they didn't release it is because what they found, they said, you know what, we're not gonna move from it anyway. They found that so many people did not vote for Kamala Harris because she was establishment, because she refused to back down from American support for Israel. And they said, regardless of how the American people feel about that, we're not going to move from that position. So it was a non-starter, it didn't matter. And they were like, don't need to publish it. So if they don't care what the American people think or feel, what are they good for? I don't know. I'm running out of excuses for them.
Yeah, so Mills is of course massively in favor of Israel. She promises she's gonna send all your money to Israel if she's elected. That sounds like such a winning strategy. And she is against 87% of Democratic voters who now have a poor image of Israel. Only 13% view it positively, but they don't really care what your stinking opinion is. You're an inconvenience. If you're a Democratic voter, you're an inconvenience to Democratic leadership. You're in between and you're in the way of them helping their donors. They just have to find a way around you. Well, good news, they can't find a way around Graham Platner right now. And the more desperate they get and the more disqualifying videos they put out, the bigger hole that they create for themselves. I love that those ladies in Maine caught her. As you notice there, they weren't opposed to Janet Mills. They just found out the tricks, the dirty tricks she was doing, and they didn't like it. There you go. I love those Democratic voters finding out what reality is and going in the right direction. Let's go get our party back.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.